5 was one of the first zombies maps along with Kino der Toten that we got to experience as part of the Black Ops series. Taking place in the Pentagon during the 1960s, it always felt like the side map, the one that no one would really choose to play, but in my opinion, 5 is a part of some of the most interesting storyline and holds many secrets and easter eggs in zombies. This is the 6th episode in the series. You can check out the previous videos on the channel, be sure to subscribe if you enjoy, don't forget to drop a like rating by the end. Without further ado, let's get into this, and here we go. On June the 14th, 1937, the United States government discovered deposits of element 115 at Groom Lake, Nevada. The US takes samples of the element and begin to experiment with it. But after many years of testing, they never really got anywhere. That was until 8 years later, where finally on November the 5th, 1945, Group 935 was disbanded, due to Samantha releasing the zombies upon Group 935's facilities, killing almost all of their members. Group 935's research stations were destroyed, and so just a couple of weeks later, both the United States and the Soviet Union used this opportunity to recover resources from Group 935's abandoned buildings. At this time, the Pentagon also hired many former Group 935 scientists in an effort to replicate their work, but they took everything they acquired back to the Pentagon and began to experiment with it. And one of the things the Americans began to recreate based off Group 935's research was their own version of the undead.
Major George Sawyer, personal log, January 20th, 1946. After speaking with Major Staver this morning, I can confirm Operation Stapler has been a resounding success. While our officers met with the Soviet representatives to negotiate the fair split of Group 935's research, our operatives quietly extracted 40 upcoming days there to be officially hired as War Department special employees. To our knowledge, the Soviets have yet to realize what we've done. Since the discovery of the depository near Groom Lake in '37, our progress has been minimal. Our hope is that these scientists will provide us the edge we desperately need for our Element 115 research program. All of this would not have been possible without the help of one Dr. Edward Richthofen. When he reached out to us last August, he promised unfettered access to Group 935's research in exchange for providing safe harbor for its scientists. While we may not have secured all the research, we did get the scientists, the brain trust. If we do ever locate Dr. Richthofen, I would like to shake his hand and thank him personally for the great service he has provided to the United States of America.
Based off the teleporter they stole from Group 935, they also managed to construct their own prototype teleporters. Another thing they began to develop was their own version of Richthofen's Wunderwaffe DG2, along with the Winter's Howl. Anyway, a few years go by, where at the Ascension facility in the Soviet Union, a Russian scientist named Yuri discovers Richthofen's diary, reads it, and begins hearing voices of corruption. But one of the voices he hears is Samantha. Samantha gets into Yuri's head and tells him to do things for her. One of the instructions she gives is to trick another one of the Russian scientists, who is Gersh, into activating a device that will open up a rift, absorb him, and allow Samantha to travel through. Meanwhile, back at the Pentagon, Robert McNamara begins to piece together the zombie attacks that have been randomly taking place around the world. Because of this, he concludes that Samantha could be planning another attack on the Pentagon, and so sets up a meeting between himself, JFK, Richard Nixon, and Fidel Castro in order to make sure another outbreak doesn't happen.
And my contacts on the ground now confirm it. On October 28th, the entity known as Samantha attacked an abandoned theater in Berlin. This marks her first attack in 9 years. The location she chose is interesting. In 1940, the German High Command repurposed it as a Group 935 facility. That makes this the third Group 935 operation that Samantha has targeted. The Berlin incident has forced us to reevaluate the recent Pentagon outbreak. We had previously assumed it was a contained affair, but must now acknowledge the possibility that Samantha played a role. I've made arrangements for the President and Castro to discuss the Broken Arrow initiative. If Samantha poses as great a threat as it seems, we must put aside our differences. No nation alone can defeat her. An alliance must be formed. We must reach across the metaphorical aisle. The meeting will be held here at the Pentagon in the coming days. Dick will be joining us for some reason. Jack requested he attend. Regretfully, I am forced to admit that Purnell was perhaps correct. If we use the Broken Arrow Initiative to harness the power of this Element 115, we could build a better world and be prepared for war with Samantha. I've given Roebuck the coordinates of the Berlin incident for safekeeping. He'll log them, along with all the others.
Back at the Ascension facility on November the 5th, 1963, Yuri and Samantha's plan finally comes into action. Yuri tricks Gersh into activating the device, in which a portal opens, Gersh is sucked into it, Samantha travels through, and Yuri is absorbed and transported to the Pentagon. A day later, on November the 6th, in the Pentagon, JFK, Richard Nixon, Robert McNamara and Fidel Castro finally have their meeting, where halfway through their talks, Samantha attacks the Pentagon, a zombie outbreak occurs, and Yuri arrives, otherwise known as the Pentagon Thief, to thwart their survival.
For time and the world do not stand still. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. I said, are certain to miss the future.
Coño, I missed that.
Prime Minister Castro, this missile crisis was the last straw. We almost blew ourselves up. Now, we invited you here today...
In good faith.
In good faith. To sort this thing out.
And why is he here? He lost.
As I always say, forgive your enemies, but remember their names. Now, gentlemen, as I like to think, in the long history of the world, that there are only a few generations.
Sounds like someone breaking in.
It's just a storm, Dick. Sit down.
Oh my God!
It appears the Pentagon has been breached.
Zombies. Gentlemen, at times like these, our capacity to retaliate must be, and has to be massive, to deter all forms of aggression. Gentlemen, lock and load.
Viva la revolución!
Any last words, Mr. President?
Yes, Jack. Any superlative words of inspiration for our humble troops?
Do not pray for easy lives, my friends. Pray to be stronger men.
Since Ascension and 5 are taking place at the same time, when Ultimus at the Cosmodrome finally free Gersh, the outbreak there ends, ultimately also ending the outbreak at the Pentagon, meaning all 4 characters, JFK, Nixon, McNamara and Castro, survive. And that's the story of 5. However, there is an alternate outcome. In a fractured universe, specifically known as the Agonia Fracture, in this timeline, World War II didn't end, meaning the outcome at 5 is also different. This time, JFK, Nixon, Castro and McNamara all die.
This is Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. I am transmitting on a secure channel in the most dire of circumstances. The Pentagon is under attack from an unknown enemy. As of this moment, I am safely ensconced inside a janitor's closet. Unfortunately, I fear the President and the VIPs may not have found similar safe haven. From what I have observed, our attackers may be blighted by some kind of sickness. Either that or they're just dirty hippies under the influence of hallucinogenic substances. I can only hope that this message will bring rescue. Until then, please, pray for me.
Now, getting into the Easter eggs on 5, there aren't as many as other maps. First off, we can see Yuri, or the Pentagon Thief, is a very interesting character. There is writing all over his clothing, his face. We know he was the Russian scientist that was drove crazy by Samantha. There are Illuminati symbols. We can see the Eye of Provenance, random equations and symbols everywhere. Around 5 you can find multiple different red telephones. Apart from being a part of the Easter egg song in this map, they can also be used to call the characters in Ascension since both maps take place at the same time. In the panic room, you can find a portrait of Dr. Edward Richtofen. We know this is here from a cipher that tells us Richtofen requested to have his portrait put in the Pentagon as part of a list of demands. Since Richtofen was giving the Americans information, in return, he gave them a list of things that he wants. One of those was a picture of him in the building. Around the map, you can find the ray gun and the Winter's Howl, two different weapons that the Americans stole from Group 935 and began to do their own work on. So in the laboratory, you can actually find them taken apart. On different televisions around the map, you can see the Eye of Provenance. The Illuminati is a big part of 5. You can also find another stolen part of Group 935's research in the laboratory. This is one of their teleporters. We know, along with that, there are loads of pigs down here that the Americans used for experimentation. As part of their undead experiments, they combined pig DNA with humans to create the crawlers. So that's why we see a bunch of dead pigs everywhere. There isn't really too much more in terms of Easter eggs on this map. There's a scrap of paper that you can find that says Ignimo Dubious. This translates to laughable mistake. There's a cool Easter egg in which you can find the Treyarch logo on the metal detectors. And so, there we go. Those were the forgotten secrets of 5. Be sure to check out the previous episodes if you haven't already. Let me know in the comment section below what map you want to see next. Click subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on the notification icon, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you, and until then, goodbye.